All right, good evening. Welcome to the 7th edition of This Is What Democracy Looks Like. Thank you all for joining us. Tonight we're going to be talking all about veterans. We have 1.3 million active duty military folks in this country. And what a lot of people don't know is that the third highest state where they're stationed is actually North Carolina. So North Carolina, we've got a ton of veterans. We've got a lot of people transitioning in and out of the military. We also know that our audience isn't necessarily military background. And so what we want to do is connect people a little bit, connect veterans to civilians, talk about the ways that we can support each other and learn from each other. And so tonight with us, I'm very honored to have Gerald Givens Jr. with us. He's a retired technical sergeant with the Air Force.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having this opportunity.
All right. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your background when you first joined up and some of your special assignments?
Absolutely. I joined the Air Force in 1993 after I had finished college at Lincoln University, and in joining the Air Force, I started out at Air Force Special Operations Command, and from there I moved on to an air refueling wing in England. After that, I moved on to an Air Combat Command, and then I wrapped up my career at Air Force Intelligence. So I went through 4 different major phases in my career, but I learned so much over the 20 years.
Yeah. We talked about this once. It was kind of funny to me because I know my dad put in for special assignments all the time. Put Germany, England, number 1, number 2, never got a single one. How did you manage to get England?
Well, it just so happened that I believe my wife and I, by us both being in Air Force Special Operations, we were like, okay, after about 3-4 years of doing that, we were like, it's time to settle down a little bit. And we had just had our daughter, and we wanted to get our family off on a good start. So I happen to know a good friend in assignments, and I asked him to help me out with trying to get an assignment in England, and that's exactly where we went.
So dramatically different than the corporate world,
Exactly.
Right? So we have to know somebody. It's kind of how that works.
Exactly.
You touched on your family a little bit, and I was reading about you have a ton of military family members. Did that influence your decision to join?
Definitely. My great-great-grandfather served in World War II, and another grandfather served in the Korean War. My father served in Vietnam, and I have a host of uncles who also served in the military as well. And so when that time came for me, everyone said, do it and do 20 years. And so that encouraged me a whole lot. And as I went throughout my career, all of them just inspired me to do my best at whatever job that I had in the military.
What would you say you enjoyed most about the work that you did in the military?
I would say the thing that I enjoyed most, it was probably connecting with the different people from all over. You know, when you're in basic training, you happen to connect with people from all different parts of the country. You don't know each other, and you have to learn how to become a team. And over the course of basic training, you become a family, and it's tight. And you learn how to put aside your individual things about yourself and learn how to come together and sacrifice for the team.
So that's something I think is really interesting to a lot of folks, and I think we'll touch on this in just a second. I think a lot of people have this idea that when you retire, that you're 65 and you go golfing. In particular for the military, that's not true, right?
That's
so
correct.
If you sign up when you're 18, 19, 20, you could be retired by the time you're 40.
That's correct.
There are a lot of years left to give and work and be really active in your community. So since you've retired, you've done a lot of work with motivational speaking, getting involved in politics.
Yes.
How do you think that your experience in leadership in the Air Force really helped you make that transition?
Well, I was blessed with an opportunity early when I was in Air Force Special Operations Command. I had a wonderful commander who saw, hey, that he has the potential to lead, and he created a situation where about 4 or 5 of us could attend some training at Forbes. And we went out to this special session and we learned a lot about leadership from a business perspective. And then we came back and applied some of those principles right along into the military. And we went on and we won awards and got outstanding in our inspections and things of that. And that kind of like helped me get rooted and in shooting for excellence. Excellence is one of the core values in the Air Force. It's service, integrity, and excellence are the core values in the Air Force. Service before self, integrity first, and excellence in all we do. So you had all of that going on the inside, right? And so when I got ready to transition into the civilian world after I reached 20 years, I knew that after working in intelligence for more than 10 years and never been able to tell anybody what I did,
right.
I wanted to be able to do something completely different. And I started working at a children's home as a project manager for 3 years. And that was an amazing, amazing experience because I was still able to serve,
right.
but in a much different capacity. And at that time, I used my leadership skills also to supervise because I had a team of people that I had to supervise as well, and I helped that organization grow from a $6 million operation to a $16 million operation within a 3-year time period by using the skills that I learned in the military and creating teamwork. And so that was an awesome experience.
That is really great. You know, we've talked to a lot of veterans. We've been really lucky this month. We asked for veteran stories, and a bunch came in. And I always feel really honored when people are willing to share, especially their combat-related experiences. One thing that came across in almost every letter and story that we got was once a soldier, always a soldier. And so when you said, this gave me an ability to serve in a different way, talk to me a little bit about that. Is that as common as it seems to me, that this
Yes.
idea of service just never goes away?
It never goes away because we love our country. And I remember on my very first deployment, that lesson of landing in a bear base, which means that there is nothing there. We landed in the middle of the desert. There wasn't a tree, there wasn't a bird, there was heat and sand. And regardless of our rank, regardless of our different branches of service, we all had to build a tent city together. And to me, that was the first community that I think I ever really lived in, where people came together and took nothing and made nothing into something. And it was an amazing experience. And so it's the same thing when you get out of uniform. You want to see your country do the same. You want to see the country succeed. And so when I look around and I look at infrastructure, when I take a look at healthcare, when I take a look at all of those different issues, I apply those exact same principles that we used in the desert to wherever I live.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, we're kind of we try really hard with this show to be nonpartisan. I think most people would agree with this, though. We're in a political time when it's very much us versus them, tear people down. It's very negative, it's very destructive. And so when you look at people who've had the experience of taking core vision and going, all right, we have a mission to do, and we have to do it according to our values, right? That sort of building up, I think, is something that is so important, and that we definitely need. To me, that's a core area where, you know, having military, having veterans who are transitioning out, working in politics, working in the field, is really awesome. It's a learning opportunity for all of us as well.
It really is. And one of the speeches I give to college students, one of the speeches is education without ethics is nothing. And that's what I think a lot of what's missing in the civilian world. Not to say that the military is perfect, because we have our issues too, but ethics are so important to being able to accomplish your mission. And in our society, you know, a lot of the emphasis is on wealth, and wealth doesn't always translate into the best.
Right.
And what I've always found out is that being able to grab somebody that's doing a little bit less fortunate than you are and giving what you can to help out in that situation,
Building
it up,
right.
it helps everybody. And that's what I try to focus on, and that's what I try to encourage other veterans to do. Take those skills that we learn. We're like that 1%.
Yeah.
You know, and let's take what we learned and let's apply that into our society.
What do you think some of the challenges are for, veterans who are transitioning, out of the service? What are some of the challenges in trying to parlay that into a civilian job?
Well, I think a lot of that, first of all, that a lot of times it's scary when you're about to make that transition, whether if you decide to do 4 years and decide to get out, or whether you decide to do 20 years and get out. I mean, the feeling is exactly the same. But I think that the key to it is taking advantage of the transition opportunities that are available for us. We have these things called TAPs and things like that help us, make that transition, get your resume together, go to different types of job fairs, and there are different types of seminars that are available out there for many of us to take advantage of. I served on a commission that helped veterans make that transition.
When you're giving back again.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
You're like, this helps me now. I'm gonna donate back.
Exactly. And then we would work with American companies and businesses and encourage them to hire a certain amount of veterans so they could make that transition.
Yeah. I think it's great. It's something that we need. And we do a written toolkit along with the show, and that's just been posted online. So please check it out. One of the things that we do include in there is some of those resources that you're talking about. A couple of the universities in the area have offices specifically to help both with enrollment for furthering education, GI Bill, etc., but also to help with resumes, etc. So we got a lot of those resources in the toolkits. So if you are a veteran, or if you know a veteran who's looking to get out, these are things you can do to help support our veterans.
And I saw that toolkit. It is amazing.
Oh,
it is
thanks.
absolutely amazing. And those are the type of things that actually make a difference, because once you know, you do better. And I think that having those different types of things available, and also making it to where it was so easy to be able to download it on my phone. That was one of the things that I learned as an effective way to be able to communicate with veterans today. If you want to do it now, do it where it's on a mobile phone.
That's really good to know, and thank you for talking about that too. It's we want to do this layered learning, and we know people cannot remember everything that's out. There's so much information, but having really talking about an issue at a time, and then having the reference material available is something that we try really hard to do. So thank you for your help with it. We have a lot of people who pitch in. So it's good to see that same kind of team building, community building with
Definitely, because there are so many issues out there. Healthcare, that's a very important issue to us as veterans. A lot of times when we get out, we start feeling that pain. I know I've been retired now going on 3 years, and
so it's like your knee or shoulder?
My knees, shoulders, back, I got everything going on. It's happening because when we were younger, we used to do crazy things. I was in Air Force Special Operations, and I did a lot of crazy things back then, and now I'm starting to feel it in my.
And running in those boots is kind of crazy.
The boots, the boots, everything. It was a. And then, it's wear and tear. I mean, I remember one experience where I was on a mission and we actually moved 1.5 tons of equipment by hand. We took it off a Navy ship and moved it to a port, and then we had to get it to my field area.
A 70-pound pack is pretty bad, but you're talking about 1.5 tons.
That's right, but it didn't feel like a 1.5 tons when you had hundreds of veterans together forming that human chain and moving it from that boat to our campsite.
Yeah. I did want to talk about, just for a second, if we could, some of the myths that you think civilians might have about people in the military or veterans in general. It can be sort of a touchy subject, but I've heard some crazy ones recently. Have you heard any crazy ones that?
I mean, a lot of the myths that go out. Well, let's start out first of all with PTSD. Yes,
that's the big one.
A lot of people are apprehensive sometimes about hiring veterans because of the PTSD that some of us experience. I can tell you that there are tons of resources that are out there for those of us who having to deal with PTSD. I have PTSD. but there are tons of resources out there, and there are organizations that are helping out big time with disabled veterans, the Wounded Warrior Project. I mean, there are so many different things that are out there now to help us deal with this type of stress. So don't think that just because a veteran have PTSD that they're not hireable or they're not sociable.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was one that I heard a lot. I think the other one I heard a lot was that everything's special forces, right? You know, it's all war games and special forces, and there's these great TV shows, and that's not what 1.3 million military folks do in this country.
It's not. No, it's not. It's all. And I can tell you that I've been on both sides of that, where I began my career in Air Force Special Operations, and then I ended my career at Air Force Intelligence. And I can tell you there are a lot more people on the intelligence side getting that information to the special operators than there are special operators.
Yeah,
so it's a lot of people in a support capacity that make the military move.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and that's true, in private business as well, right? You may only see the leaders of Forbes, like you mentioned Forbes earlier. There are millions of people who make the products move, the ideas move, and so I think that's very similar, and that's something that people may not know about the military is that you've got administrative staff, you've got communication staff, just like you do in a corporation.
Exactly, just like how it is in regular business. You have communications, you got finance and accounting, you have all of those different things. Those exact same things apply to the military. I sat in those meetings with our director of staff and with our generals when they would have to weekly address each one of those different issues from the different commanders and leaders in those capacities.
And that's something I wanted other people to know too, because as you are looking potentially at hiring a veteran into your organization, you got to know that. I mean, veterans have all kinds of backgrounds. If you're looking for a finance person, don't think it's all special operations.
Exactly.
And ask the questions, right? There's so many veterans, and I think if you're really if you're compassionate and kind in the way you ask questions, I've never met anyone who wasn't willing to talk in some way about their military service.
I have one of the troops that I used to supervise. I'm so proud of. He owns a restaurant in Miami. He used those principles, and he's been on the chef shows on Food Network competing and things like that. But he took those exact same principles that we had in the military and turned it into a business. My best friend, who happened to be a major, he retired, and now he is the chairman of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. He is helping 200,000 businesses in Texas get access to almost $2 billion of that market in Texas. So, I mean, folks in the military, we have a large skill set. I always tell people, if you do at least 4 years in the military, you will accomplish more than what most people do in a lifetime. And I've done 20. Yeah. So you
might want to rest now, but you're not.
And that's where I'm at. And I'm glad that you said that, because after working for 3 years as a project manager, I believe that my talent and my skills now are more important in helping organizations like yours and other nonprofit organizations, and especially when it comes to being able to do more with less and being able to negotiate and learn how to build teams to get things done.
That's huge. And I think the other thing too that a lot of people don't think about, especially if you are serving overseas, everybody in the military is really an ambassador for the United States.
That's true.
And that's not something you think about, especially, if you're enlisting and you're an E4 and you're stationed somewhere. You don't think about that necessarily. But the experiences that you have with local people in particular may end up shaping their lifetime worldviews.
Exactly. I have people that I mentor all over the world. I just worked with a group from President Obama had a group called the Mandela Washington Fellows, where he brought over hundreds of people from Africa, and they followed around African American business owners, and we helped them get a whole new view and perspective of business from the American point of view. Yeah. And I have relationships with them, I mean, from all over Africa. And by us being able to use social media, they're able to stay in contact with me all the time.
The world is so small now.
Exactly. And we can do so much more. I just recently was visiting some of my family back home in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm originally from. And I went into a restaurant and I began speaking Arabic to the owner, and ended up with a whole lot more food than I asked for.
Oh, of course you did. Yeah, I had that experience just the other day, and I met a woman, and I said, "Is your native language Arabic?" And she said, "Yeah." And she asked how I knew that, and I said, "Well, I used to live in Amman." And she goes, "What part of Amman?" "I'm from Amman." And so we started talking. We lived in the same neighborhood in Jordan, right?
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing that, for me, my dad was enlisted in the Army, and those were experiences that I would have never had if he were not in the service, right? And so it shaped my worldview, it shaped my ethics, it connected my world. And so that's why this is an issue that I'm particularly passionate about. What do you think, your average person should know about the military, about veterans? How can we better support veterans who are transitioning?
I think that probably, right now, if you have the opportunity and the capability to go to any of the military bases in your local area and just get familiarized with the transitioning process for veterans, and then inform them about your nonprofit organizations or your businesses in the local community, it makes a difference. When I retired, I had 9 different organizations that wanted to hire me. And so I was blessed.
That's so great to hear.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was blessed with being able to choose my job as compared to some other people sometimes. And for those veterans that are out there, don't underestimate your value. You have knowledge, skills, and capabilities that people in college may not necessarily get, because we get the application side of it,
right,
along as well as with the book knowledge that goes along with that as well. So that's what you have to realize. You're more valuable to society than you really believe.
I think that's absolutely true. And I'll add to that just for a second. If anybody who saw the sort of advertisement or post for the show, that was actually a picture of my dad, with Air Force guys, Army guys, Marines. I couldn't get any with Coast Guard and Navy all in one shot, but I thought it was a great picture in that it shows the diversity, not just among the branches, but among the types of people that you meet, really bringing everybody together. I know my dad's guys used to always say everybody bleeds red, right? And when he got out of the service, he worked for Wounded Warriors. He works for Specially Adapted Housing now, which is a great program we touch on as well in the toolkit. It's something very few people know about. You've got a lot of guys with severe disabilities, and being able to adapt their housing to accommodate them is really, it's kind of the least we can do. But he was lost for a while. When he got out, he was like, I don't know what I want to do. And so I would sort of echo your message that even if you're trying to get out and you're unsure, don't give up. You will absolutely find your way, and what you have to contribute back is more than we in the civilian world can ever give to you guys.
One of the organizations that I think support military veterans a lot are local chambers of commerce. If you usually go to a local chamber of commerce, you'll usually find that there is a military committee or a military liaison representative that's there. And I know for myself and my experience, while I was in the military, I created 2 businesses with other military veterans as well. And the Chamber of Commerce was a great source for us as well. And I've pretty much been a member of a Chamber of Commerce since I was like 16 years old, because I had
vision.
What happened with me, I had a guidance counselor who told me to do 3 things. She said, go to college. She said, join the military. And she said, become a member of a Chamber of Commerce. And I did all 3. And now I'm writing my first book, and she's writing a foreword to that book.
That's fantastic. I love, the connections that you make, and I think that's something that comes across in your leadership style. I've seen you speak on gerrymandering, for example. Missouri's loss is certainly North Carolina's gain in having you settled here. So we are really happy to have you. Thank you for being on the show and also for being so active in our community.
And thank you so much. And I believe that as veterans, we have a special kind of duty to our country. It's about the Constitution. Once you go ahead and you take that you swear to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution, that's something that never really stops with us.
Yeah.
It's not about being a Democrat. It's not about being a Republican. It's about being an American. That's
right.
what's most important. And that's the message that I think that veterans have to continue to send to the rest of society. We all share the same roads. We all drink the same water. We all breathe the same air. And we all want what's best for the next generation to come. My daughter right now is a college student in Australia, and she wouldn't have had that strength or that encouragement to go to Australia to become a college student if we never had that opportunity to live in England.
Right.
And that's what empowered her to want to go ahead and go overseas versus going to a college here in the United States. The experience of being in a military family, being able to live overseas, and
the confidence that comes with
the confidence to be able to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very grateful to have your time and also to have such a powerful voice in the community, especially on issues like gerrymandering, education, motivational speaking. It's really a gift to have you. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and get the best maps for North Carolina.
Yes, yes. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great night.